to welcome you to our Learning Lab series, which is a focus on communities of excellence using a Baldrige framework to drive transformation. I'm Shelley Hirschberg, and I am an ambassador for the Health Doers Network and have been working on the Learning Labs for several months. This particular series, is part of the Health Doers Network virtual programming funded by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. This is the third of a 5-part series, Learning from San Diego, Building Safe, Healthy, and Thriving Communities Through Collaboration. This is also a special edition, and you'll hear more about that in a couple of minutes. But I would also like to take a moment and brief you on the technology that we'll be using today, that we'll be engaged in today. There are several features that I'd like to point out. As I said, this is a special edition. So this is a much larger learning lab than typical. So we're doing, our engagement and conversation will be a little bit different than the norm, but we are hoping you all will still be very engaged, all of you in the audience. I want you to take a look at the chat box. If you use your cursor, you should see the chat box either at the top or bottom of your screen, and we're going to use that to engage others, to engage you in asking questions and making comments as we go along in this learning lab. If you want to go live, we can promote you. So if you raise your hand in the chat box and say you'd like to go live and ask a question, that would be terrific, and we will be able to see you and hear you then at that point. We are recording, and in our typical learning labs, we don't share the recording because it's a private space, but today, because we have so many attendees, we are going to make this recording, this learning lab, available on the Health Doers Network. And for those of you that are tweeters, we encourage you to tweet using any 3 of the handles, hashtags that we have below on this slide. I want to give you a brief overview of our learning labs and the intentions we have for our learning labs. Typically, learning labs are designed to be small and intimate, and we're talking maybe 15 to 20 people. So we have the ability to explore a variety of topics in a safe and open environment. But today's special edition, as I mentioned earlier, is much larger than we typically will do, but we thought the topic deserved to open this up to our whole Health Doers Network. We usually invite a few panelists to tee up the conversation, which is in contrast to webinar format, and then we spend a good part of the hour sharing stories, asking questions amongst the groups that attend the learning labs. So even though it's larger today, by using the chat box, we'd like you to be engaged, ask questions, share your experience, and be present with us. We're also hoping, the learning labs are really intended to accelerate your own learning, and we are hoping that you'll come away with some ideas today that can help accelerate the work in your own communities. We have been using this framework for all of our learning labs in the last year, and we've used it both for moving towards a culture of health learning labs and the Community of Excellence series. As we all know, if we look at the 2 circles in the upper left corner, for several years we've had innovative hospital and health system leaders that have been driving not only healthcare transformation, but have engaged their communities in the process. At the same time, there have been multi-sector groups that have started to align and build coalitions to tackle upstream issues around the social determinants of health. In this process, hospitals and healthcare systems have begun to align with other sectors to tackle big community issues. As you can see, the 2 circles beginning to intersect. And in several of our learning labs, we've been looking at that intersection and how are both folks working in community transformation, healthcare care transformation, how are they beginning to tackle these issues and tackle them together? Our working theory is, as the country moves towards a culture of health, healthcare transformation will become part of community transformation, still distinct and important, but the edges are blurred with a more seamless connection in mutual support of population health. In the registration, we asked you which space you are currently working in, community transformation or healthcare transformation, and what you're hoping to learn today. So I'd like to share just a couple pieces of information. We did have 135 attendees register today, which is probably 5 times more than we usually have in our typical learning lab. And 45% of you are focused on community transformation and 55% in healthcare transformation. And we also asked you how familiar you are with the Baldrige. And between those of you, over 75% said you were very or somewhat familiar with the Baldrige criteria. And about 25% you knew it by name only or not at all. So we have a really mixed group, and I think those 25% will hopefully get a lot out of the discussion today and how the Baldrige criteria is going to work in community. Now, with 135 registrants, I had to pick out some of the key areas that you wanted to really learn about in this learning lab today. So I will not read you 135, but I am going to give you a sense of some of the things that people want to come away with. First, you want to better interpret and apply the framework in a community setting, and about how Live Well San Diego rates the hospital's community health needs assessments. Also, how the health systems and communities work together to improve performance, and then the process for implementation and where one can get more information about the Baldrige framework. Also, tangible examples of work. What is the applicability of a Baldrige framework to the creation of a rural health model? And then what are some tangible tools, guides, and takeaways, concepts, and skills that can be shared with others? How to make long-term health impacts in the community. Also, how to engage the community along the journey of health. And then what are some of the success stories from San Diego that are generalizable? And how were the Baldrige criteria adapted to fit a multi-organizational system as opposed to a single institution, which I think is a great question. And what is the use of health IT as part of the effort? The why of choosing Baldrige for this work with lots of models out in the country. And how to get everyone focused on the end goal. And then who plays the role of the anchor institution? And then the last one I'm going to share with you is how can public health services assist with this framework and process? Now that is a lot to cover, but we can always continue, if you're interested, we can continue to do deeper dives in any one of these questions. So at this point, I'm going to turn the mic over to Stephanie Norling, who is going to tell you about this, the Learning Lab series, where we've been and where we're going. Stephanie?
Hi, everyone. Just a quick note, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm very pleased with how many people registered and how many people are here today. So our first 2 learning labs were really a background on the basics of how we chose to use a Baldrige-based framework in communities. And our very first learning lab was really about our chairman and co-founder, Lowell Cruz, and his journey in Northwest Missouri and where the idea for this came from. Our second learning lab then was more of a drill down into the Baldrige framework and the communities of excellence framework and how we went from adapting Baldrige to communities. So this learning lab we thought would be a good opportunity to then show you how our pilot community in San Diego is using the community of excellence framework in action. Based on what we've heard from you all, we want to keep February and March open so that we can be able to address your questions and your specific interests. But our general focus will be on sustainability and spread. Next slide, please. So just to give you a quick recap of what communities of excellence is, our hypothesis is that a systems framework that's been proven to drive performance excellence in companies and organizations, the Baldrige framework, can be modified to achieve that in communities. And our focus is on benefiting the health and well-being of the residents in a community. So we've talked about part 1 and part 2 already. And so now we're going to go into part 3, which is a focus on San Diego and the work they've been doing. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you Barbara Jiménez, who is going to now talk to you about San Diego.
Good morning, everyone from the West Coast, and good afternoon on the East Coast. My name is Barbara Jiménez, and I am the Director of Regional Operations with the Health and Human Services Agency here in the County of San Diego. We'll start really quickly, just going over some of the learning objectives for today. Helping you, you've probably all heard a little bit about Live Well San Diego, that's the vision that we have here in San Diego. And so I want to explain a little bit about what that is for those of you who are not familiar with it. Talk a little bit about why Health and Human Services Agency in the County of San Diego chose to implement a Communities of Excellence framework, and also the value that we are seeing in the Communities of Excellence and that framework as we're applying it to our leadership team. We're going to share a little bit today about the lessons learned in our journey, and also just identify some of the steps that a community can take for similar work in their community. And I just want to emphasize that we are really in the early phases of our journey, so we still have a lot to learn, but more than willing to share what we've learned so far. Next slide, Shelley. Really briefly, I want to just share a little bit for those of you that are not familiar, kind of set the context of who we are here in the County of San Diego. And we are about 4,200 square miles. We're larger than 21 U.S. states. We have over 3.3 million residents in the entire County of San Diego. About 48% of our population is Caucasian, and about 32% Latino, 11% Asian Pacific Islander, and about 5% African American. We are the 5th largest county in the United States, and the city of San Diego, which is the largest city here in the County of San Diego, is the 7th largest city in the entire nation. We're very diverse. We have, and very large. We have 42 school districts, 18 tribal nations, and about 18 municipalities and 36 unincorporated towns. So as you can see, we're very diverse and geographically unique. Next slide. So I talked a little bit about, and you can see on the slide, our Live Well San Diego strategy. And so what Live Well San Diego is, it's really a vision. It's a vision for all 3.2 million residents in our county. And the key points of this vision, or the ability to be able to drive this vision, is really having partners that can adopt the framework, and having partners that are committed to really coming together to work by aligning efforts toward this collective action and toward this unifying vision. Live Well San Diego is really founded on the notion that individuals and organizations have the ability to build better health, live safely, and ultimately thrive as a complete resident community. And it really is about understanding that no one single entity can drive this forward. It really is about working together. So a little bit of history on Live Well San Diego. Our County Board of Supervisors adopted this vision back in July of 2010. And the decision to do this was really sparked by what many of us are seeing not only in San Diego, but across the nation and internationally, which is, that we are facing a tidal wave of chronic disease and rising healthcare costs. And so Live Well San Diego, as you can see, is really focused around 3 components: building better health, living safely, and thriving. And each of these components were adopted and rolled out into our community at different points. But together, they form this vision of Live Well San Diego. The vision, as I mentioned earlier, is really about how do you unite all sectors, whether you're a business, whether you're a school, whether you're military, community, faith-based, all levels of government. It's really about working together to create a positive change. And so on the pyramid that's on the slide, you can see our strategic approach is really, there's 4 different strategic approaches. It's about building a better service delivery system, supporting positive choices, pursuing those policy and environmental changes which can really make a difference, and improving the culture from within. And we have 5 areas of influence, which are health knowledge, standard of living, community, and social. What's really important is how are we going to measure? So as we're moving forward in this vision of creating a healthy, safe and thriving community, how are we really as a whole ensuring that we are making that difference? And so having these top indicators is really critical, because all of this will measure that impact of the collective action. So again, Live Well San Diego is a vision, and it's really a plan to advance the health and overall well-being of our entire San Diego County. Next slide. So I spoke a little bit about San Diego County as a whole and our demographics and what we look like. I want to share also that within the County of San Diego, the Health and Human Services Agency is one of 5 business groups. And within the Health and Human Services Agency, we have what we call a regional model. We have 6 regions, and we use these 6 regions to be able to deliver services to our community in unique manners. So we listen to our community, we work with our community, we identify from our community what are those unique needs. Because I mentioned before, the county is so large and so diverse that you're going to have different needs across the entire county. So the South Region community is one that I'll be focusing on today. But so I wanted to give you that framework in terms of our regional model. But from the inception of our agency, we know that the key goal is really about how do you provide excellent service. And so in order to be able to achieve this, we really embrace and understand that using the Baldrige framework is the logical choice. So on the slide, you can see that when we line up our audacious strategic goals and you put them next to those Baldrige core values and concepts, they just align beautifully. The Baldrige core values and concepts drive our agency strategy and leadership model. The Baldrige framework is used to seek out those opportunities for improvement, which are key, and to really build those sustainable processes to achieve the desired outcomes. Now, as an agency, the Health and Human Services Agency, we've had great success, and in particular, our Edgemoor Hospital has really been on a journey to excellence. In 2010, they received the Bronze Commitment to Quality Award. In 2014, they received the Silver Achievement and Quality Award. And in 2016, they applied for a Gold Quality Award. Now, on the Gold Quality Award, we fell a little short in obtaining that award. But the important thing is we use this feedback to be able to make improvements. And so we'll be applying shortly, soon for the Gold again. Now, we also are working on, we have efforts on the CAPE prospector application. And so that application writing is in process. Again, looking at the feedback that we receive, so that will help us make some important changes and really reinforce our effective strategies that we already have in place. So when folks ask, why did the Communities of Excellence framework appeal to Health and Human Services Agency in the County of San Diego? You know, the county and Health and Human Services, we really serve as a backbone organization in the community. So the framework allows us to really continue to partner with and to really just work forward and operationalize those shared mission, values, and strategies. It helps us strengthen Live Well San Diego by really ensuring that we have a stronger impact on health and well-being of our county residents. And more importantly, it really helps us and allows us to build on the success that we have had. Next slide. So as I shared before, South Region is one of the 6 regions in the County of San Diego in the Health and Human Services. And South Region was selected as the site for the implementation of the Communities of Excellence framework. And so similar to some of the demographics I shared for the entire county, our South Region community is very diverse as well. Over 61% in the region are Hispanic or Latino. Now, we're geographically unique as well. The South Region to the south has the U.S.-Mexico border, and the border here is one of the busiest borders crossings. And we also have the city of San Diego to the north, and again, the city of San Diego is the largest city in the county and the 7th largest in the nation. And then we have the Pacific Ocean to the west and mountains to the east. And again, we're very large. We have about 500,000 residents in this region, and we're very urban as well. Over time, we've been really fortunate to be able to drive forward and move forward this Live Well San Diego vision by really having strong partnerships. And in fact, in the South region, we have a group of leaders that have been coming together even before we began our journey with Live Well San Diego, and then subsequently our journey of incorporating communities of excellence. We've been working together for about 10 years. And, you know, the foundation and the power of partnerships is really built on trust and relationships. And so I think that is a key component of our success. It's really prepared us to seek these new opportunities, to reaffirm our commitment in our community, and to bring about community excellence. As the community and our partners seek new ways to really improve and confront the challenges that we are all facing, having the opportunity to use the Baldrige-based framework really couldn't be passed up. It's really ideal to be able to do in this region. The partnership with communities of excellence and really adopting the communities of excellence performance excellence framework was just a natural step in our journey. As you can tell, as I shared about what the Live Well vision is and what you know of the communities of excellence, as you can see, it really is an excellent opportunity. And many of the community of excellence core values, resident and customer engagement, really valuing diversity and inclusiveness, building and sharing the knowledge that we all have built over the last 10 years, having an agility really to move in whatever direction we need to, and really focusing on the challenges of the future, but really encouraging innovation. And then really importantly is being able to measure the performance and understanding that there's value and results. And these are all values that every community could really benefit from. And so these are all elements that require strong leadership and collaboration in order to fully deploy. So we really believe that a region that is health, safe, and thriving demands that we adopt these values found throughout the communities of excellence criteria. Next slide. So I shared a little bit about the South Region leadership team and the fact that we have been convening and working together over the last 10 years. And so I want to talk a little bit about our approach with our leadership. We've been coming together for 10 years under different efforts. And then in 2010, when we launched Live Well San Diego here in the County of San Diego, and we started talking about this vision, it was natural to be able to really come together into this, this group that we already had working together. But the framework of Live Well San Diego really helped take us to that next level. But now you look at the communities of excellence performance framework, and that is even taking it even to a higher level, because what it does, it's helping us to build on those existing successes. It's really also taking some time to assess our current state. You know, how can we identify those opportunities for improvement? How can we really build sustainability and spread? So, you know, being able to, again, even take it to that next level is so critical. Something that I've really gained from, for example, the community leadership section of the framework was that as leaders, we really need to set the community shared vision. We need to set those values, talk about those values, and we really need to create focus on the action to really fulfill the community societal responsibilities. So as the leadership team adopts the criteria and we begin to look at the work that we've been doing through the Baldrige lens, we understand that this is a commitment with really no end date, that the improvement we will make will really be able to obtain meaningful and long-lasting results. So some of the specific steps in our approach, we started by really looking at completing the community profile. And again, really importantly, stepping back so we could identify those opportunities for improvement. We all pride ourselves of knowing our community. For those of us who live, work, and play in our region, you know, for us, it's really important to understand the dynamics of our community and what we're doing. But I would say that what I encountered personally going through this process is that there are key characteristics, the environment and the relationships within our region that are constantly changing. And so it's really important to be able to look at those opportunities for improvement and look at what is our environment and context. And so the leadership team as a whole and our partners as a whole can help provide that much needed insight on our community's identity, offerings, and our shared programs. Now, something else that's really important and another step that we took was really documenting the strategic planning process and really identifying improvements to our core process. And again, as a whole, our leadership team is very successful. There's a lot of commitment. There's a lot of engagement from our partners. We have a trusting and solid foundation and relationship. But when you go back and you look at that strategic planning process that we have been using, there is an opportunity for improvement. So as we begin approaching the beginning of a 2-year strategic planning process, really being able to document this process and identifying those improvements to the core process is going to really fuel our community as we set to accomplish and what we set to accomplish for the next 2 years. So working on the profile made it evident to understand our competitive position compared to other communities, the complete set of challenges we face and our advantages. We need a stronger process. And so I'm going to elaborate about that a little bit on the next slide. And we will be working as a team to really design the process and help us obtain the voice of the customer and the resident to really meet and capture results. So the core values and concepts of the communities of excellence is really critical. And it's really helped us assess and discover those opportunities for improvement that I mentioned. So although we are in the early stages of adopting this framework, we've already noted some significant opportunities for improvement. And so this will help us prioritize those based on community needs. On the previous slide, I spoke a little bit about, you know, our leadership's approach as we move forward. So on this slide, I want to just highlight some of the specific opportunities or OFIs that we have discovered, and so I want to address those here. First of all, being able to maintain a high level of commitment and interest from all our team leaders. Again, we've had great success, but Baldrige really is about how do you create that sustainability. So thinking about what will happen in the future. And we believe the Communities of Excellence framework really can help answer this question throughout and has helped us as we move through this process. The community profile really highlights what's important in the community, what are the challenges and advantages, who are the people and organizations that can help the community achieve what it sets out to do. The leadership section highlights the responsibility of the leaders to really fulfill the community's societal responsibilities. And then, of course, we know that the strategy highlights the importance of making those meaning and lasting change in our community. So understanding what our partners and the collaborator goals and objectives are really critical. We have many long-standing partners, but every day there's a new opportunity to bring in new partners and really help understand, for us to understand and then for understand, you know, how do we create an environment where the community can really help each other? And how can we move forward toward achieving this joint collaborative vision? Everyone has a vested interest in collaborating together, and we've been able to demonstrate that. And as I mentioned before, Live Well San Diego really spells out those 5 areas of influence that appeal to all sectors in the community. So this is where those opportunities for improvement really come together. We also want to broaden our strategic planning focus. We're on the cusp of starting a new strategic planning. And in the past, so one of the lessons learned, aha moments, was that in the past, our strategic planning has really been focused solely on health. So not all the priority areas and the goals really resonated with all our diverse community partners. So therefore, we ended up with some difficulty in measuring and really demonstrating collective impact. So through this new strategic planning, we'll engage partners from all different sectors toward that one common vision. And so as we move forward to different sections of our criteria, we'll be able to come across other processes that would need to be designed or improved. And many of them are processes that will need to feed into our core strategic planning process. So as an example, one of those would be really obtaining the voice of our resident and customer. We also want to make sure that we can create comprehensive goals that focus on the health, knowledge, standard of living, community, and society, and social. So in order to do that, we really need to be able to understand the gaps in our community, to be able to create opportunities for a greater cross-section of the community to participate, and really streamline requests that we receive from our community. Look at how we're collecting and analyzing data. And again, how are we truly measuring that collective impact? I mentioned earlier that one of our OFIs was also the whole documenting our process. So, you know, that really impacts our ability to manage knowledge, replicate, and spread those efforts. So being able to establish the baseline to understand how we currently operating is really critical. And so as we move forward, just being able to use our approach, deployment, learning, integration, really to process, to assess the processes is extremely critical. Also, as we're moving forward, it's improving, measuring, and demonstrating collective impact. And so I've mentioned this in the past, and I can't underscore this enough. But our leadership team is comprised of at least 30 different organizations with over 100 collaborators. And we're open and constantly asking for more people to be engaged, and for residents in particular to attend and come join us. But within these sectors, there's key community groups that are really involved that help us accomplish the vision and mission. And so creating a process to be able to obtain the voice of the resident and the community group, and creating a system to collect and analyze data and results from community organizations is critical. Next slide, please. So as we look to the future, it really is about how do we continue to build on our successes. And our accomplishments really have been great, and we're very fortunate. But we also recognize and through this process have been able to identify that there are great opportunities to improve. So as we move through the framework sections, we understand that there will be many OFIs, and even as we move to revise and finalize the community profile section of the framework, we know there's these notable opportunities for improvement that really have emerged. We're interested in really being able to capture these and then being really strategic about how we approach them. And we understand that ultimately we want to build a system in our community that is sustainable and can grow. So I'll elaborate a little bit on the next slide, but I again wanted to share that one of those opportunities for improvement is that we wanted to address was our strategic planning process. We really view this as an engine in our community, and we wanted to move towards how do we make notable changes to build, to really drive results. Being fully aware that as we move through the section and as we build a system, we'll have to incorporate other supporting process into our current strategic planning process. Building community engagement around the framework is really essential as well, because it, again, as I mentioned before, there's not one organization that can really drive an effort. It has to be, it really takes the support of all, and it really is a collaborative effort. So Baldrige and the Community of Excellence framework really do value meaningful and lasting results. And so we know that the results section is the most critical in the framework. And so in order to be able to really produce these meaningful and lasting results, what we need to do is to really, to be sustainable, is we really need to continue to focus on the vision. So I know I'm running a little short on time. We'll jump to the next slide because I want to allow enough time for questions. So again, some of the lessons learned is really improving that strategic planning process. And from our perspective, this is just one of the most important points. We also want to make sure, as we learned, as we went through the framework, was really being able to collect and analyze that relevant data. So being able to really stimulate and incorporate innovation is really critical. Obtaining the voice of the residents and the customers. Again, that was a big aha moment, and we really don't have a formal process in place to capture the voice. So what we're learning through Communities of Excellence, that it's just really important and critical to help build those relationships. The biggest concept we have learned in this framework is really considering those residents in two ways. One, as customers that use community services, and two, as resources to be engaged in doing the work of the community. Understanding how the Baldrige principles translate in our community. And I just want to take a moment to really thank Stephanie Norling and Community of Excellence for helping us through this process, really understanding what those Baldrige concepts are and how they relate to our community. And gaining an understanding of why this is just really a worthy undertaking, what this can do for our partners and individuals and the community as a whole, and learning that it's important for our leadership team to really understand, and this is really critical, this is not a separate initiative or a separate project with a beginning and end date. It is how we're improving the way we go about things from this point forward. Next slide. And again, we're really in the early implementation phases, but as we think about the next step as we begin a new phase in our journey, it's really working with the Communities of Excellence framework, and the following come to mind: getting to know your community through the community profile, really establishing and maintaining those partnerships, conveying the value of adopting the communities framework to our partners and collaborators, really documenting those processes, and really valuing the opportunity for improvement. And I'm happy to share more detail about that in the questions and answer section or as we go forward. And the next slide, I believe, is the last slide. I just really want to quickly acknowledge that, our South Region leadership team, and I'm hoping that many of them are on this webinar today, but they are a wonderful group of partners, collaborators. Again, Communities of Excellence, our team here at Health and Human Services Agency, and the Health Doers Network. Thank you very much.
Barbara, thank you so much. That was a terrific presentation, an awful lot to absorb, but we are now going to move into what we feel is a critical piece of our learning labs, is the open discussion, where we can really bounce around ideas and tell our own stories, ask questions, and really get into the heart of this. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this is a special edition, and we have over 100 people at the Learning Lab today, so it won't be quite as dynamic as we have with smaller learning labs, but we still want to encourage all of you to get engaged. Go to the chat box, ask questions, raise your hand if you want to go live and actually share or ask your question live. So I'm now going to look to see who might want to get engaged and ask some questions.
While we're waiting, I'm wondering if maybe anyone on Barbara's team would like to add any of their perspective to what this journey has been. Manuel, Annabelle, or Tina, maybe?
This is Annabelle. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So one of the major things that I believe that we learned through the Communities of Excellence is to not give up as you're going through the framework. The main thing that we looked at as we sat down to try and fill out the organizational profile was, as we looked at the questions, some of the questions are pretty difficult, and your initial reaction is to, excuse me, let me move so you can hear me. Our initial reaction is to say this question doesn't apply to government, so let's skip it, when in reality, we pushed through it and identified that the questions actually did apply to the community, and it actually gave us a different way of segmenting how the community, how we were putting together what we defined as the community. When you look at what is the shared identity, that was probably the biggest aha moment. I believe that for the most part, we believe that the same city has the same shared identity, but in reality, it seems to be pretty different if you really sit down and look at it. So that was the main aha moment for us, was really to not give up. The question is intended to be difficult, so we need to go through it and keep at it, because you do learn a lot from it.
Thank you for your comments. Is anyone on your end, Barbara, the team that's there, I know you addressed the issue of hearing the voice of the community and the voice of residents, and it sounded like you've identified that as a need, but I was wondering if anyone's begun to research how you would go about tackling that particular part of your program.
Hello, everyone. This is Tina Emmerich. And a lot of what we notice, and I'm sure some of you can relate to this in your communities, there's a lot of partnerships and partners out there already engaging residents. They're doing that through promotoras, through existing networks. We have something in San Diego called Resident Leadership Academy, where we're engaging the resident. But what we're really learning through the Communities of Excellence framework is we haven't pulled the partners together to really document a process of how we can really obtain that voice of the customer. So if we're providing education and empowerment, sessions to our residents, how do we tap them at a later time to really give us information we need to really capture that voice of the customer?
Hi, this is Manuel. I'd like to add also to Tina's comment that then as we move forward to build systems, we want to make sure that we're obtaining that information, what the residents and our customers are saying, and that we incorporate it also into our strategic planning process to understand what the needs of our customers are, so we can plan out our goals and priorities better.
This is Stephanie, and I wanted to start addressing some of the questions in the chat box. The first one is from Rick, and it says, to what extent does the Baldrige framework incorporate the need to transform mindsets in order to adopt complexity and service design thinking and move beyond linear frameworks? And I have promoted Brian Lassiter, who is one of our faculty members and a COE board member, to respond to that question. And so, Brian, if you're available right now, I want to ask you if you can address that. I hope that works. You know what, while we're waiting for Brian, the next question I wanted to ask was for Barbara, and it's from Susan Shaw. It says, how you initially build relationships to trust one another. In my community, there is a resistance to work together as there is a win-lose mentality. If we work with you, you won't get monies, and we don't.
Okay. Let me go ahead. So I didn't hear the finishing of the question, but it sounded like the question is about how do you go about establishing those trusting relationships. And there's just all different ways. So it really is about meeting our community partners where they're at. It's really being engaged in their efforts. It's truly being at the table, having those discussions. And it really takes time to create that trust. But I just want to highlight it. It doesn't only happen, for example, at my level. It happens at all different levels. It really is working together, understanding what those common vision and mission is, understanding that we mutually working together, we can really support our common goals. And, I think the other thing is many of us are working towards the ultimate vision of really creating a community that's healthy, safe, and thriving. And while we have different initiatives or our community partners may have different areas they need to focus on, we want to make sure that we can support them and have those conversations and be available to them to help join together as we're moving forward. It also is about identifying potential new partners and pairing them up with some of our community partners as an additional resource for some of the efforts that we're doing. An example is, we have a community partner that needed to be able to have kind of one-stop shops in their community. So when they reached out to the community partners, we were able then to outstation some of our own eligibility, public health, and child welfare services staff at one of their locations, so that when community comes in, again, we're mutually supporting the community by having our staff not from our, not in our facility, but all together in our partners' facility to better serve the community. So it does take time. And again, it just happens at all different levels and all different ways.
Thank you, Barbara. Okay, a couple of things. I want to also invite Annabelle to give a response to that. And then Rick, in response to your question, Brian Lassiter is going to type a response because he was having trouble. And then finally, I want to get to Gary's question because I think it's an excellent one. So let's go with Annabelle first.
In responding to the question of how you, in responding to the question of, oh, sorry, that's feedback. In responding to the question of how you build a win-win relationship and you have people come in, the framework will actually help with that particular approach, because to do the to answer the questions and to put together your Communities of Excellence framework requires you to sit down and work with the community. So the biggest difference is the person who's facilitating and bringing the people together is not the person just dictating how everyone is moving forward. It's actually a joint approach and a joint goal, and that actually will go a long way in building a joint relationship that goes further. And one of the hopes from this, and we have had some success already, where we work together with community to apply for grants together to bring funding to the community so that we're working together towards the goal.
Thank you. We have a comment and a question from Gary. He says, this is an interesting and intriguing discussion. Thank you. As one who is very interested in collective impact, comes from the healthcare sector and is interested in driving community-wide impact, the use of a backbone organization or group of neutral conveners is often highlighted. The question of funding these resources, but also the challenge of engaging others across the community at times daunting. I think we all agree with that. I'm in conversation with several foundations on funding backbone work. How can you convince them of the value? What might the expected budget needs be? Is there any help for those of us in these discussions? And I want to put that out to the group because I think that that's something that we're all exploring right now. This is new. The Baldrige framework has always been used in businesses and organizations across 6 sectors of our economy. And bringing this to communities is a very new effort. And speaking from Communities of Excellence, that's, I think, why we're so thankful and grateful for our San Diego pilot, who's been willing and so helpful, willing to engage with us in this process, and so helpful giving us feedback to perfect this approach so that we can start spreading it to other communities across the country. So to get to the specifics of your question, I don't quite have those answers just yet, but if anyone else wants to comment, I'm certainly happy to throw that out. But one thing I do want to say is that we have really seen that a majority of the interest is coming from healthcare, because as healthcare is moving more into the Communities of Excellence framework is really the natural iteration of the work that they're doing, the natural next step in the work that they're doing in their communities. And so I think it's really important to keep this open with healthcare organizations and really try to create that partnership as best we can. Let's see. Any other comments? Okay, let's see. I'm trying to catch up on the chat box. Does anyone have Okay, let's see. To what extent did turnover, i.e. staff to partner changes, affect your drive to achieving your goals? And what, if anything, did you do to address this? This is a great question for the Health and Human Services team, because this gets at sustainability and one of the really important pieces of the Baldrige framework. If anyone wants to take that question on.
Sustainability is an important thing for all organizations, whether you're doing Baldrige or not doing Baldrige. And that's an issue that everybody is always tackling. The important thing about following the Communities of Excellence framework is that it gives you a way to document what you're doing. It's telling you how you need to share your knowledge. It's having you document your approach for how you're going to collect your voice of the customer. What's your strategy? What's your leadership? So it actually makes you do what we all know we should be doing, and we don't always do it. So by documenting the information, and getting lots of people at the table to help you put it together, you now have a systematic approach for how you do what you do, and you have it written down somewhere, and you have a process for how you obtained what those goals were. So it's easier for people to continue with the goals that you had set in place because you had a process and an approach for doing them.
Juliana has a great comment, which I think we all completely agree with, which is that healthcare organizations such as hospitals can also serve as the backbone, especially since they are funded by grants, which increases their stability to be in the picture long term. And I think we're seeing that in a lot of the interest in communities of excellence is coming from the healthcare sector. And one of our most recent communities that will be joining us is Charleston, West Virginia. And the backbone there is going to be the Charleston Area Medical Center. So that, along with a number of other examples, I think is where this is really starting. But to be clear, I think that one thing that's really important to us is that this is about all sectors of the community. And so while our interest right now is coming from healthcare, I think that we all know that this should be a representation across education, across employment. We want to see chambers of commerce. We want to see schools. We want to see cities willing to serve as backbone organizations as well. So as we continue to explore how this framework works in different communities, it's really important for us to explore how different sectors and different groups can be backbone organizations. And here's a comment from Gary that I actually worry about having a healthcare organization as a backbone. Well-intentioned, they're not always perceived as neutral. That's an important comment as well. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
You know, this is Barbara, and I can just share a little bit more. As we talked about that, some of those lessons learned and really improving our strategic planning process, kind of building upon what Annabelle talked about as well as the sustainability, is I think that, you know, that important point in the strategy section when you talk about how innovation is defined, you know, and it really is about making those meaningful changes to improve all of the services and our community programs and our effectiveness, is we understand that sustainability is really about how do you make that meaningful and lasting change and the continued support. So this goes back, and it kind of all ties together. Making sure you're documenting those processes, making sure that regardless of folks leaving, you know, you still have those documented processes and you understand what those that framework is, and you're documenting that framework. Really looking at how we're collecting not just data, but relevant data, and how that also forms a part of the process. And then again, just really building upon understanding what is it that you're missing and really obtaining that voice of the residents. Again, you know, there really isn't, as Annabelle mentioned, a formal process in being able to capture that. And so the framework has helped us identify that. Just being really transparent, I would say before this process, that if anyone asked me if I had the residents' voice and our customers, I would say absolutely, because we have so many partners at the table who represent our community, and we've always opened it up to our residents. But really our big aha moment is we don't have a formal process, and we really, really have to be able to obtain their voice. That really helps our leadership and our partners to not only design a better strategy, but design better processes, programs, offerings, and really understand what we need to do to help carry that out.
Thank you. We have a few more questions, and Shelley, I want to check in with you on the time to make sure we're okay. And how you
Stephanie, we have about probably about 2 more minutes, so we're good.
Okay. We have a question from Julie. Can you expand a bit more on the key tangible results or community outcomes you've been able to realize at this stage of your implementation? I'm going to leave that open to the team. Who wants to take it?
I can start, and then anyone else can jump in. This is Barbara Jiménez. So a couple of things that really we're quite proud of as a community, as a region. One is really working to support our elementary school district. So Chula Vista Elementary School District is the largest elementary school district in the entire state. It's here in the South region, And the school district and their leader, our superintendent Escobedo, has really identified that there was, as we know in many of our other communities, high obesity rates. And so working together, we really were able to help support them. And this goes back to really being able to look at, they took the BMI for their students. They're up about around 30,000 students. They're able to then take that BMI data and work with our epidemiology public health department to really look at how do you get that data back out into a community, to the parents. How do you use the data to actually build a wellness and implement a wellness policy that will drive change? And we've seen the decrease in the obesity rates for the school district as we've moved forward in the last 5 years. And so it's quite magnificent in terms of folks being able to come together, but it really takes leadership as well. And so having the school board leadership, the superintendent, and the partners at the table has really been something that's been quite marvelous. The other thing is we have a group of partners which include businesses, government, law enforcement, the city, coming together to really address a particular park in our community, which was no longer safe for our residents to use. And so our partners were able to come together and meet frequently to really talk about what is needed to make this park, again, once safeable and enjoyable for our families. And this has been going on for a couple years now, and we just come together and we address and work together, and that's been a huge success in terms of the turnaround of what we've seen in this particular local park. I'll open it up to others.
Barbara, I think we're at time, but I want to thank you so much. I want to thank you and your team for spending the hour with us today and giving people a really good sense of the robust work you've done with Communities of Excellence Baldrige framework. And also want to thank Stephanie, my partner, and really helping to support her to communicate the Communities of Excellence framework. I want to, the hour goes very quickly and we could probably keep going for another hour, but there is a way to continue the conversation. And as I mentioned in the beginning, this series is facilitated by the Health Doers Network, which is a wonderful way for us to keep this conversation going. And so I am going to turn the mic over for Lucy McDermott, who's our community manager at the Health Doers Network, to show all of us how we can continue this conversation. Lucy?
Hi, everyone. So a few minutes ago, I chatted in the link to join the Health Doers Open Community, and I'm going to share my screen and walk through the process of how to do that and how to engage in the conversation. So right now, you're seeing the homepage for the Open Community. For those of you who are members, which I know a few of you are, you'll go to sign in or join. And from here, you can either log into your account or you can create a new account. So just select new user, register now. After you log in, I suggest that you bookmark this page so that way you can just be one click away. Every month, the Open Community does a different topic cycle. And right now, we're featuring social-centric approaches to health and healthcare, which is a really great opportunity to continue the conversation from this learning lab, but to also learn about what you all are doing in your regions. To find the Communities of Excellence thread, what you'll do is you'll go to latest discussions and you'll see Communities of Excellence using a Baldrige. And this will bring you to the entire thread from the series of the learning labs. So if you've missed the past few learning labs, or if you want to learn more about Communities of Excellence overall, you can just go to this thread and you'll be able to see all of the engagement, all of the slide decks, all of the resources. So this is a really great resource to have. You can also view the slide decks in our resource library, which is a great way to also find additional topics that may be of interest for you. So to do that, you'll select Library, go down to Health Doers Learning Lab series, and we've had 2 series thus far. We've had Collaborative Leadership and Communities of Excellence. Select that, and you'll see all of the previous slide decks, as well as the recordings from previous learning labs. We look forward to continuing the conversation with all of you on the platform. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or to someone here on the Health Doers team. We're happy to help. All you have to do is press Contact Us in that upper right-hand button. You can also use our search feature to search for Learning Labs or Communities of Excellence. And we hope that you join us. Shelley, back to you.
Lucy, thank you very much. We several people asked, and we are going to post, Stephanie will post this recording on the Learning Lab site that Lucy just showed you. And also I want to, we're going to put into the chat box a really brief survey. One question, please, please, we ask you to respond. We want, and if there is a place to put a comment, if you want more of anything you heard today, let us know. We want to design these learning labs around what you all would like to learn, and also want to invite you to part 4 of this 5-part series on communities of excellence, which will be it's the second Thursday of every month from 12 to 1. So the next date is February 9th, and you all will be receiving an invitation. And again, please, we're going to leave the survey up for a couple minutes. We're going to keep this live. In closing, I want to thank everyone, all of our panelists, and I would also like to encourage you to please complete the survey. Thank you, and hope to see you next month.